If you've been following the Oscar Pistorius bail app and appearances in court, chances are you've seen literally tens of thousands, if not millions, of comments, updates, opinions, some borderline hate speech, and some just feedback. And for instance, if Poppy tweets something that is deemed hate speech, and I retweet it, what are the legal implications for me? So we figured, let's get in touch with Mike Stopforth. He's the CEO of Cerebra. They're South Africa's biggest social media agency. And Mike obliged, because he's a nice guy. Mike, hi.
Hey, Fresh. How's it going, man?
We're good. Thanks for joining us, Mike.
Cool. Thanks for having me on the show.
To get to the point, when does your opinion in social media become hate speech, for instance?
Yeah, look, Fresh, it's a scary situation, and there's been, I don't think we've ever experienced this level of vitriol and negativity on social channels, at least not from a South African perspective.
Yes.
And I think one of the concerns is that there is very little precedence or guideline for what constitutes hate speech, and at one point in time you held legally liable for what you say. And that's, I guess, the problem of social media in many respects.
Yes.
As cool as it is and as powerful as it is, there are very few guidelines and tools that we can use to kind of filter by. And that's a challenge.
So how do I even start deciding before I press send that my tweet might be hate speech, my tweet might get me in trouble?
Well, I think without considering the possible legal ramifications, there's a moral ramification as well. And,
yes.
It's a little bit like comparing it to driving. There are written laws for driving, and there are unwritten laws for driving.
Just basic etiquette.
Basic etiquette, basic human decency.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that's become apparent through this entire saga is that we possibly are lacking in basic human decency. I just don't think it's okay to say some of the things that have been said, no matter what the circumstances, and no matter how connected or disconnected you are from the situation. When such an incredible tragedy happens, and it's kind of sad that tragedy happens in South Africa every day. So this is something we need to be conscious of all the time. Is that maybe we need to take it a little bit more seriously and think harder about whether or not we would say those things face to face with the people involved.
Yeah.
Because you never know who's reading it, right?
Yes, indeed. Now, do you think there'll come a time where someone is actually sick and tired and they decide to actually take legal action, and that will shake people up a bit?
So I mean, there are cases of that happening on a global level, and very little precedence locally again.
Yes.
And I think, yes, it could happen. I guess the big concern is scalability. If Oscar's defense, for example, had to argue against defamatory speech on Twitter, I don't know how they would identify all of the people that are guilty or that have participated. And although the web is a one big audit trail, it's a real challenge to scale that kind of legal action.
Yes.
So I wouldn't look to legal precedents. I would look to hopefully fundamental human decency, and I'd look to people who lead and influence on social media to set a better example. Whose
responsibility is it, Mike, to maybe come up with some sort of code of conduct? Do we need that? Should we be babysitting people?
You don't want to get freedom of speech is critically important, and,
yes.
and it's one of the fundamental pillars of our Constitution. So you don't want to compromise that. It's
yes.
important that people get to express their opinions and that they feel free to do so. The challenge is when it sort of crosses the precipice into something that's profoundly offensive. And I guess there's, again, very little legal precedence for that. So it's probably going to be a combination of a legal statute and hopefully a growing sense of responsibility from ordinary people and consumers as to what they say online.
Now, you talk about the fact that there's no real, legal precedent when it comes to social media and judgments. But for instance, if I feel that Catherine's tweet defames my character, what are the chances I could actually go to court and win?
Again, it's interesting because there are a couple of cases on the go, to the best of my knowledge at the moment, that are probably going to set a precedence for this. I know there's a particular Facebook case that made headlines recently, where somebody was granted an interdict to have somebody remove information about them on Facebook that they felt was defamatory. So it is happening, and as these platforms become even more popular, it's going to be more prevalent. I guess the guidelines haven't been written, though, and that's a step that needs to be taken. But again, Fresh, I want to resist that, because at the same time, I think it comes down to basic common sense. I mean, if you're not going to say it in front of somebody or to their face or in a public room, then why would you, in your right mind, say it on Facebook or Twitter?
Okay, I'm going to take it a step further. So Catherine tweets about me, and I feel that my character has been defamed. And then Poppy retweets, and then Duran retweets. Can I take all three of them to court? Or is it still only on Catherine?
I'd love to comment with authority. Again, I don't know what the legal statute for that would be. But I would assume that a retweet constitutes an endorsement. So yeah.
Or spreading the vitriol or whatever it is you're putting out there. Yeah.
Absolutely. Again, retweeting somebody, specifically in the case of Twitter, or sharing something on Facebook, is an endorsement. It's saying, I completely agree with this, and I would be happy to stand by it as my opinion. So yeah, I guess that would stand up.
Couldn't I argue that it's an FYI, not necessarily an endorsement? Just like if I write about an axe murderer,
I suppose that's the beauty of
in a newspaper.
That's the beauty of a court.
I'm not endorsing them. I'm putting the information out there.
Or maybe you could say
I suppose
that.
You could do that. Yeah.
Surely you could say that in your retweet, saying just for your information.
Or just FYI.
Yes.
Or just gasp.
Yeah. Something that shows that you are shocked.
Yeah.
And not
like an OMG.
And not like thumbs up.
Mike,
no.
So the bottom line, Mike, is your concern is people need to be a bit more responsible in what they put on Facebook, what they tweet, because it's only a matter of time before it catches up with them.
Yeah, you know what, Fresh, the work that we normally do involves companies, but this is a far bigger story. This is between human beings, and it involves enormous amounts of complexity and massive implications. And I just think the barrier to entry to publishing on social media is so low, and incredibly powerful, and has such exponential reach that we need to think a lot more carefully across the board. And maybe this is something that happens at a school level or at a varsity level or whatever it may be. But we need to be talking more about responsible publishing from a citizen perspective,
Sure.
And that's a challenge because, again, the rules aren't written.
No, because I think that's actually, where, you start seeing how as individuals we say such rich things. We expect journalists to report responsibly. We expect newspapers to publish responsibly, but we're not willing to tweet responsibly.
Yeah, I suppose the reality of social media is that everybody becomes a journalist. Everybody becomes a publisher, and the rules that apply to professionals should probably, some of those rules should apply to us citizen journalists as well.
Yeah, indeed. Mike, thank you so much for some of your insights, my friend. Where do we find Cerebra online?
Yeah, you can find us on Twitter at Cerebra, so Cerebra, or our website, www.cerebra.co.za.
Now, I know that you guys also have a entertainment lawyer that you guys work with.
Yes.
Yeah, could we maybe have a chat with him next week just to look at the legal side of what we tweet and what some of the ramifications are?
Absolutely. I believe the self-same person is actually making an appearance on TV this weekend, so I'll put you in touch with her.
Great stuff. Thank you very much, Mike.
Cool, man. Thanks very much.
All right, that's Cerebra CEO Mike Stopforth talking about tweeting responsibly.